Just because you don't take insurance doesn't mean your clients can't use it. Mentaya is an out of network billing platform that gets clients to get back 70% back on therapy without the therapist lifting a finger. I've checked out their product and it's truly a game changer. It's what I wish I had in my private pay practice. They handle literally everything so you can focus on what matters therapy. Go to practiceofthepractice.com/Mentaya to try it out for free. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/MENTAYA to get started for free. Mentaya is amazing if you have private pay clients that want to bill their insurance. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 944. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast. I am so glad that you are hanging out with me. Happy New Year. We are doing some podcasts all about new habits in the new year, talking about how people have leveled up, how they've gone beyond their counseling practice. We just had the 7-figure practice series that happened in late December. So a lot of these people were actually folks that did consulting with me, joined Next Level Practice, Group Practice Launch, Group Practice Boss. They were in some way connected to our communities, and now they have 7-figure plus practices. So if you missed out on that, make sure you go back and listen to that series that wrapped up the year. A bunch of amazing 7-figure practice owners. I am so excited to have another friend back on the show that I've known for a while. Kristina Orlova is the founder of Core Results Family Therapy, private practice specializing in OCD and anxiety disorders. Core Results uses evidence-based therapies to empower individuals to break free from OCD. Kristina is also the host of OCD Whisperer podcast and has created the online OCD Academy with self-directed on-demand courses for OCD. Kristina, welcome to the Practice podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Joe.
Yeah, I am so glad to reconnect with you. We did consulting years ago, and it's just so great to have people on the show that we have been talking for a while. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I actually looked it up, and it was last time when we consulted was May 2017.
Holy cow, that was a bit
Wild,
ago.
right?
Yeah.
We've had all sorts of stuff happen between then and now.
Oh man, we were but children back then. Well, let's go back to then. So if you think about, 2017, what were your dreams for your practice? What were your dreams for what you were doing in your world? And then I would love to kind of follow that journey as to how you got into the podcast and leveling up beyond just the clinical work.
Yeah, so back then when I started following your newsletters and everything, and was just so jazzed about all the work you were putting out there to support clinicians. When we started consulting, I was in a place where I did not yet kind of have a clear direction of really what I wanted. So we could say I was like a general practitioner, if you will, where I kind of was like all over the place. And part of our work at the time is you were saying, okay, let's start with kind of, step one, which is, looking at potentially niching. And so that's where, this whole concept of niching came forward. And I'll be honest, from then to now, there's so many clinicians that I also know who get really nervous and scared when they think about niching. And, because I think when we just start, we all want to I want to help everybody. I want to, be there for all sorts of people, for all sorts of issues. And that was one of the first times when I really was spending time figuring out what would my specialty be. Is there a specialty I would want? So that was our work then. And then look at
Well, and
now.
I want to pause you right there because I think that just this morning I was doing a consulting meeting with somebody, and their clients dipped, and I had been for a few sessions encouraging them to really identify their ideal client and have that be clear on the website, and they have a very kind of particular view of the world, and I was thinking about that actually throughout today, and it's interesting how so often this happens in my world where I see these trends and discussions. Where I was thinking about how we're trained to be open and affirming and to, be trained in multidisciplinary, and, we're not usually excluding people. Like most people that are therapists don't go into the world and say, I don't like this group of people. They don't allow themselves to do that. That just isn't part of their DNA oftentimes. But then it feels that way, even if it's inaccurate, when we niche in to say, these are the people I really, really like. And it almost feels like a clique in high school, rather than just saying, this is the kind of business I want to create. So like, how did you push back against that feeling of helping everyone to niche in? Like, what helped you fast forward that acceptance that it's okay to kind of go into one area?
So there's two things you said that stand out. One is when you said that it's a kind of business I want to run. I think that right there is actually an important element. I think that a lot of therapists, myself included, when we go through our training and education program, we actually don't have a strong business aspect of it. And so we don't think of it from that lens. Um, and I think that's an important thing to be considering. Is what kind of work do you want to do, right? Are you wanting to only be doing community work or nonprofit, or do you want to at some point step into your own business, a private practice? So that's one of the first decision points. For me, how it happened is, I remember trying to figure out this ideal client and kind of what would that look like, and also feeling kind of nervous, and frankly, I kind of fell into a group practice that was specializing in OCD and anxiety. And before that, I had already done work like with, Women's Cancer Program. I did work with the foster care community, with, probation youth. So I've done enough community work. I worked with elderly as well, geriatric population. And when I got into that niche, I just noticed my whole being light up. Everything in me got so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, this all makes sense to me. I love it. I get it. I couldn't wait to learn everything I could and kind of devour it all. And that's when I realized, aha, this is what that meant. And so once I really saw that in my reaction to it, I put the two together and said, okay, this is my specialty. This is the thing I love.
So how did you decide that anxiety and OCD was the thing that you love? Like, what helped you figure that out?
Well, I'll be honest, one of the things, this is actually kind of personal for me, because one of the things is that in that process and before that, so I have OCD myself, and I've had like panic attacks and anxiety issues. And when I think back to other experiences I had in my life where that would come up, I would doubt it. Of course, that's part of what OCD does, is makes you doubt everything, including that you might have OCD. And so when I started seeing clients and learning, it was incredible how much of myself I saw in there. And as I got my own therapist and then got through, I put myself through more training of how to actually treat OCD and different anxiety disorders. I then recognized and realized so many patterns. And the excitement came from seeing that it's treatable, you can heal. And then, of course, I've always had a big drive to help people, just from very early on. And so finding this angle of how to help people specifically dealing with this became like a personal calling, really. And I think the biggest thing that really hit me was how long it took to really recognize and realize that what I was dealing with was OCD, and how common that experience actually is for people. How many people who actually have it don't get the right treatment, don't get the right support, literally anywhere from 14 to 17 years before they might actually get a diagnosis that actually is accurate. And so,
Now, I want
yeah.
to pause you right there. So, so many clinicians are listening right now. What are things that you would say they should be looking for that maybe they would have missed, through that OCD lens? Like, what are just some symptoms, some things that clients would say, maybe even things that you said that finally somebody said that's OCD, that a lot of us haven't been in grad school for a long time, and maybe we aren't getting specialized training in these areas. Are there a few quick tips for people listening that they could identify, oh man, that's OCD in that client?
Yeah, so you're right. Right. When we go through grad school, we kind of cover things kind of globally, right? We focus on therapeutic relationship and alliance, but we don't really spend as much time per se. I don't feel like in a lot of programs talking about the different disorders or kind of niches that you could potentially get into. So with OCD, for example, quite often what we hear in the media and in generally what people know is things like, oh, I like to keep my stuff clean, or oh, I like to line my stuff up. Um, OCD is a very debilitating anxiety disorder. Nobody with OCD will say, oh, yeah, I like to do this stuff. So, key hallmarks are things like one, if you're having kind of repetitive thoughts and you're kind of going in a repetitive process in with a person and you're noticing that, okay, we kind of covered this already, but here we're kind of doing it again, and you're getting kind of pulled into, um, out loud, let's say, keep analyzing and figuring something out. That would be a sign to notice, wait a second. What you normally would see somebody do is when they've, gotten into something, they usually arrive at a point of clarity. They get some insight, aha, they apply it and they move forward. Somebody with OCD can do mental rituals, or they can engage in rituals with a therapist where they're seems like they're going over the same territory in different ways, and they're not really moving forward. So really that's something, for example, that would be called you're co-compulsing with your therapist, but you're just doing it out loud. So you're kind of regurgitating something over and over and over, but you're not arriving at any conclusion. You're not taking any action. That could be one clue. Another clue is intrusion, so obsessive thoughts. So somebody, if they're starting to say things like, "Well, I don't want to, but I have these weird thoughts or images that come into my head around, what if I hurt somebody, or what if I did something, horrifically wrong, and I'm going to be found out and everybody's going to hate me." So you want to be listening for that kind of stuff. When people have kind of general worry thoughts, they tend to be more like generalist anxiety, things about, real world, like maybe you're worrying about relationships, finances, your work. And there's kind of a rationality to it. With OCD, it's the worries are really intense, and they're not necessarily tied to any, they may start out of a real life kind of process, but really where you'll hear the thoughts and the fears go are really quite catastrophic and irrational. And the hallmark is that it's obsessive, meaning it pops into somebody's head. It could also be a feeling like something just doesn't feel right. I can't put my finger on it, and the person really can't quite move on. It's like they get stuck in this place. And no matter how much you try to rationally discuss, or if you're trying to do standard cognitive behavioral therapy strategies like cognitive restructuring, all that stuff is actually not going to work, and it's counterproductive to somebody with OCD.
Yeah, I think those are such great points in regards to just the kind of therapeutic value of pointing that out regarding OCD. Are there any other areas that you would say that therapists tend to miss, or that it just goes untreated?
Yeah, I think the biggest things that I keep seeing over and over is when a therapist doesn't understand what is an intrusion, an obsession, and a compulsion, they might inadvertently think that, oh, maybe this person is actually at risk of self harm when they're not. Or sometimes also, I've seen other providers, even MDs, sometimes miss and think that maybe there is more like a psychosis going on when there's not. So I think what's really critical is if you think, if you're sensing that in your sessions you're not quite moving forward or making progress, that's when you might want to pause and ask, tell me a little bit about your thoughts. Do you ever have thoughts or images or feelings that kind of pop in that you don't want, but they kind of show up anyway, and then you get really anxious as a result, or you feel panicky or shameful, and you try to kind of do something about them, whether you're trying to mentally figure it out or make it go away or anything physically. That would be kind of a great question to ask, because people with OCD, they'll tell you that, yeah, I have these thoughts that really bother me. And then they'll tell you like, oh, I have an image that just feels wrong. And so you'll kind of start to hear that what they're experiencing is really what we call ego dystonic, meaning it's not in alignment with who they know themselves to be. But they keep having that experience, and they don't know how to make it stop. And then
Mm.
you'll notice repetitive behaviors. That's the thing you want to look for, and not just physical, but also mental repetitive behaviors. So, like I said, if somebody keeps asking same questions in different ways, but really it's the same thing, or if you notice they're kind of going and regurgitating and rethinking and reviewing something over and over and over without getting anywhere or getting any clarity, those are going to be your clues of, oh, something's different here. So those would be hallmarks, some of the hallmarks of the OCD experience.
Mm. So as you grew your practice, was there a moment when you said, I want to go beyond this? I want to start a podcast. I want to launch courses, or was it kind of a small, like slow trickle of opportunities? Or was it just like, yes, I have to go do this?
That's a great question. So I'd say for a while, I remember kind of looking up at people who had practices and thinking, man, maybe one day, I'd like to do that. And as I was in this niche, so first when I was in the group practice, I actually had clients starting to tell me like, man, I wish I had you in my pocket. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, I wish like between sessions, like, I'm like, you mean like a podcast? They're like, yeah, like something where like, I could hear your voice or your show, a reminder. And I started laughing. I'm like, okay, I guess. And then one client in particular kind of said it again and again. And I guess I just kind of took it and thought, well, I guess maybe let's try. And so it was kind of a perfect timing. It was February of 2020 when I thought, all right, let me kind of give it a go. So right before February 2020 was my first episode that I released. But before that, I really was just kind of playing with it as an idea just to see. And I had somebody I hired to help teach me just basics of how to set up a microphone, how to do basic GarageBand kind of audio, edits. And I'll be honest, the first time I recorded anything just to say even hello into a mic, I panicked and didn't touch it for 4 months. And then I recorded the first episode, and my the person I was working with at the time said, "Okay, you're going to upload it now." I'm like, "What? I'm not ready." He goes, "Now." I'm like, "Okay." So I did it. So that's my first episode. And then I kind of just kept doing it. And I had more clients tell me, oh my gosh, I wish I could have you. And I'm like, okay. So I kept going. And I'd have to say, honestly, more just kind of with that encouragement, took faith and internally gave myself a goal and said, okay, Kristina, if there really is a need, here's how you're going to know. If you see this grow organically without you doing anything, then you know that there is a need, and then keep going because you actually have something to share. And why not interview other specialists in your field and ask them all the different questions that people have all the time. And I really found that also as COVID happened, it really became another wonderful avenue and an outlet for me where I got to have that kind of conversation. And then of course, as people started to review it, or they would, send me messages saying, oh my gosh, thank you so much, great episode, and so on. I started to see like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. People actually are getting value from this. And that again is one of my biggest drivers, is to really serve and help people, especially in this realm. And so from that place, it really grew. And I promised myself when I had 100,000 downloads, then I would really step in and take it to the next level. So that has happened. And so now that's where I'm at, is I'm really currently taking this to the next level in terms of getting on other shows, in terms of building out, kind of production from the production end, both having an audio and a video component of it, making sure that I continue to get a wider reach, because I know that there are so many people out there in the world who have OCD and just don't know it, or don't have a place where they can get some education and information. And I know that, with the show, that's one way that I can really, help more folks around the world. So at this point, yeah, I'm all about really growing the show and getting it to be, to get to a wider audience.
Going in network with insurance can be tough. I know when I took insurance, there were long wait times and it was so confusing. Filing all the right paperwork is time consuming and tedious, and even after you're done, it can take months to get credentialed and start seeing clients. That's why Alma makes it easy and financially rewarding to accept insurance. When you join their insurance program, you can get credentialed within 45 days and access enhanced reimbursement rates with major payers. They also handle all of the paperwork from eligibility checks to claims submissions and guarantee payment within 2 weeks of each appointment. Once you've joined Alma's insurance program, you can see clients in your state of licensure regardless of where you're working from. It's amazing to know that you can be fully online. Learn more about building a thriving practice with Alma at helloalma.com/Joe. That's hello, ALMA.com/Joe to get started. Stop what you're doing just for a second. Take a breath with me. There's so much to do in private practice and so many resources and trainings and things like that to focus on that we've brought it all together for you for a totally free event starting March 11th and going till March 14th. Level Up Week 2024 is coming up, and I want you to save that date. We have some amazing panels we're planning where we're bringing together people that have started a private practice, people that have started a group practice, and people that are rocking out mega group practices. Also, we're going to have some amazing keynotes and some trainings that are on very practical things. There's no need for you to bounce between Facebook groups wondering, is this advice good? What should I do next? I don't even know of the 50 things that I need to be working on what I should do first. Instead, come to Level Up Week. It's totally free. You can be on the early bird list over at practiceofthepractice.com/level up to get all the early notifications for when we open up registration. So again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/level up. Now, as you grew that show, what were some tools, mindsets, habits that helped you keep with it even when it was difficult? Because I know that oftentimes starting a podcast is a ton of work. You don't always get maybe the numbers you hope or things like that. Like, what were some tools or mindsets or habits that helped you out during that time?
Yeah, great question, actually. I think one of the first things is managing expectations. So I didn't go into this with the expectation of this is going to be, you know, my one thing that's going to, I'm looking at for, like lead generation, or I'm looking for it to sell something, right? I really went into this with more like a hobby. Let me just have something where I'm doing it just to help people. So that was one. The second thing I set up early on is when I looked at other people, I looked at, publishing schedules. So a lot of people will publish either weekly, or they will publish um, maybe even multiple times a week. And for me, I realized that that was not going to be sustainable. But if I could do every other week, that I can maintain. And that has really been a great kind of schedule for me, because throughout, just life, for example, life events happen, right? So, like in my personal life, my mom in the last 2.5 years, she has cancer. It's pretty serious, and there are times where I don't even remember recording or publishing, but because it wasn't on every other week, it allowed me to get through those hard moments. There were times where I didn't, I would question, like, should I really keep going? I don't know. It's kind of a lot of work, and I'd have a lot of fears. And I would just tell myself, Kristina, just keep going. All you have to do is just one show at a time, one step at a time. Don't worry about whatever's going to happen in the future, just one episode at a time. And so being mindful in that way and bringing myself back to use kind of that inner mantra of just keep going and one step at a time got me through pockets where things were difficult, or I felt like really insecure or uncertain, or like there was a period of time I didn't have guests lined up and I started to question, which is normal human behavior, right? We all start to wonder, oh my gosh, is this show really good? Will I get somebody on the show? And again, that mindset of just keep going, just one foot in front of the other, and bringing it back to focusing on that is really what got me through those pockets of time, and to where I am now, where I've interviewed, a lot of incredible specialists in my field, and at this point, I already have episodes that I'm going to be releasing well into next year. And then I have a next set of people I want to interview. So with time, what happened in doing that is I've grown as an individual. I've gotten more comfortable to be in audio and video. I've gotten more comfortable to reach out and ask folks who, I would want to interview. People are now reaching out to me, asking to be on my show. So, you know, I knew that if I just keep sticking with it, at some point things will change, and trusting that and having faith in that. And sure enough, like everything in life, if you're consistent with it over time, there's no way it's going to stay the same. It will grow. So I would say was it.
So awesome. Now, what have been some moments that you really, as things have grown, when you look back that you wish you would have done things different earlier on? Are there things that you maybe were too hesitant on, or things that you're just like, man, I wish I had done that sooner, but I was too scared, or anything like that?
Oh my gosh, so much. I think so. I think one part is like with when you're managing a show and social media together, right? Part of it is consistency. And I think one of the things I didn't do as great a job on in the beginning that I would change is actually slowing down and taking the time to really get clear on my identity as the show and identity in my social media because all of that is part of your branding and your kind of, well, again, I keep saying identity, but it is, right? It's like your avatar. It's the thing you are, right? So if somebody hears OCD whisperer, they immediately will then think of, just like with your show, right? They immediately think there's a certain color, there's a logo, like, oh, that's Joe, right? It'll connect. So that's one piece just from the business standpoint that I wish I would have slowed down and spent a little time on. And I at times will be honest, I kind of jumped the gun a little and then I kind of figure stuff out later. So I wish I did that a little differently. Also, in building out the YouTube channel, I think at this point I'm at 98 or 99th episode, and I think around the 20th episode is when I finally decided to go ahead and have it also be audio and video available. So that's something I also would have done really earlier and had both audio and video. That was a decision that I came to because again, so many people listen, but some people visually it's more helpful to see it and to read it. And so I thought, why not do that? And the biggest, chokehold, of course, was me because I was so insecure about showing up in video and how am I going to sound, how am I going to look, um, and you know, nothing horrendous happened when I actually finally, went forward and did that. If anything, I just got more comfortable to be in front of, a camera and putting myself out there. And so that's something I would have done much earlier. And I think any project you take on, the most valuable piece is I can't, I cannot, I have to underline how important it is that you do slow down and take a moment to really think through the different elements and what is it that you want, what do you not want. And some of that will come with just time as you keep doing it, you're going to learn. Um, but I think those are the things I would have done a little bit differently from the beginning.
Mm. Now, when you think about your own habits moving forward, when you think about your own ways that you view the world, what's been helpful as you look forward, especially as we're releasing this at the beginning of the new year? That's top of mind for a lot of people. Of I want to shift things a little bit or a lot. How do you think through that?
Well, one of the things is that, I know people say this a lot, but I think sometimes it takes a minute to really understand this concept, which is if you're really wanting to have something, you have to remember it's going to be a long term game. It's not an immediate gratification, it's you're building something out. And so I think most important is to really wrap your brain around that and we can all get excited about ideas and we all have a lot of ideas. Not every idea we have is amazing, right? So I think what's important is that if you really have something solid that you really want, I can again planning it out and remembering that you're in this for the long term. This is something that, like somebody said to me recently, a friend goes, when somebody says, "Oh my God, you're an overnight success," but really you're 5 years in overnight success, which is true, right? You're doing something for years, then suddenly, people go, "Oh my gosh, you're so lucky," and you go, "Well, no, this is not luck. This has been, 5 years in the making." So same concept, understanding that your business, it's like your baby. This is your project. This is what you want to cultivate. You want to grow it. So if there's, I think it's important to find out what excites you. What is it that when you're doing it lights you up? And maybe for some people, it's writing articles. Maybe for some, it's writing books. Maybe for others, it's creating courses. Maybe it's doing live workshops. Maybe it's a podcast show, right? But figure out what is it for you that lights you up, that you really love doing, that seems to be your element where you come alive. And then know that that will be the thing you're going to keep harnessing and mastering and working on over time and finessing it. And it's only over time and by doing it consistently that you really kind of get to that level and that place, because you have to go through those processes of, making decisions, feeling nervous, feeling insecure. Is anybody going to like this product? Or, is anybody going to want to check this out? That's all part of the benefit, really, is your own growth that happens as a result of your commitment to doing the things that really light you up so that you can continue to be of that incredible service in the world.
Mm. One of my last questions is, I mean, imagine there's someone that has a solo or group practice. They're really good at whatever they do. It could be trauma, it could be couples, it could be anxiety. What would you say should be their first steps this month to take to look at doing something on more of a national scale beyond their practice?
Yeah, that's excellent. So I think it's sitting down, and one is, like I always love to tell people, brain dump so that you can just get a nice idea of all the different possibilities that are out there. Oftentimes we might not even notice that there could be something else that we didn't think of. So if you even have somebody else you can, throw ideas around with, that would be a great thing to do first. And when you brain dump kind of and look at all the different options, then from there I'd say prioritize and pick like your top three that you'd say, okay, these three I think I like, if you're not sure yet. Or let's say you do know for sure you like them. Pick, 1 to 3 ideas and then create a plan. Okay, what will I need to do to, get that done? The biggest thing that happens is, again, we get excited, we have ideas, but we might not have the patience to sit down and actually plan it out and then execute. So that's the piece we have to get better at. So if it is, you decide, okay, I think what I want to do is create kind of an online master classes to then promote and market and sell, then okay, what do I need to do for that, right? What chapters will I have for the course? Will I make it like one big overarching course? Will I break it down into small little pieces, individual little pockets of, like mini trainings? If it's, you want to write something, then do I want to write it and publish it self-published? Do I want it to be available on Amazon? Do I want to sell it for myself? So those are the kind of things you have to think through and make decisions. And then once you have a plan, then you kind of give yourself that timeline. Okay, let me focus on the first quarter. So I like to think of things as quarters: first quarter, second, third, fourth. So in the fourth quarters of the year, what's my goal for my business? What are the things I want to get done? And then, I check in. Did I get there? Did I not? What's holding me back? So that you're really in that constant feedback loop with yourself, and you get to see if something gets in the way or if something is not moving forward. Not to be afraid to acknowledge that if for whatever reason, maybe it started out as a great idea, but for some reason I'm just not getting traction or I'm not excited about it. It's okay to notice that and say, maybe this isn't quite the thing for me right now, and go ahead and try something else. In the beginning, it really is about also experimenting and not being afraid to try things until you find the thing that really fits and that you love, that really seems to flow, and there's a certain kind of ease with it. And then go ahead and focus on that. Like I tried a
Mm.
bunch of different stuff, to be honest. And through trying a bunch of different stuff, I realized, oh yeah, no, that's not for me. That's not for me. That's not for me. Even though I liked them and I thought I was going to do them, but in trying them out, because we are experiential learners, we have to have the experience of doing something, not just reading about it, right? And through that process, I got to zero in on and say, aha, no, I love this, and I love that. And so that becomes then now my focus and what I put everything into.
So awesome. Well, Christina, the last question I always ask is, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
I'd want you to know that if you actually have a dream of something you want to work towards, please go for it. And the other best thing I could say is find mentors around you who are already doing the thing that you want, so that you can either consult with them or watch them, study them, look at what they're doing, because you already are going to have clues right there so that you don't have to kind of completely reinvent the wheel. You can use mentors around you to move you forward.
So awesome. And if people want to follow you, I know you have a free gift for people as well. Where can they find all that?
So you can follow me on Instagram. OCD Whisperer is my handle. And also, I built out the online OCDacademy.com. That's where you can sign up for my newsletter. And I also have masterclasses for OCD. And then, of course, there's my private practice, which is coreresults.com.
Awesome. And I know you have that OCD survival kit. How can people grab that?
Yeah, so you can either go to the online OCDacademy.com, you can go to coreresults.com, or even on my Instagram. And the link is right there in my bio. And that way you can grab that resource. And it's something I put together for folks with OCD, where it'll have, the kind of top best podcasts that are all OCD focused and book recommendations. And there's a couple of worksheets and apps and all that.
Oh, so awesome. Well, thank you, Kristina, so much for being on the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Joe.
I love that idea that, to break things into quarters. As Kristina was talking about that, to think through, like, what are we going to work on quarter by quarter? I know that for the last couple of years, we've done that at Practice of the Practice to say, what are the one or two big KPIs for the year and how do we break that down? And for probably the last 18 months or so, really operations has been our big focus of looking at who's doing what. We went through the EOS system and some trainings to look at, are the right people in the right chairs? The ways that we've done it in the past, should we keep doing that, or do we want to change things up? And even saying, if we were to have this opportunity now, like I remember, late 2023, looking at our social media, and on Pinterest, we get a lot of views of some of our old things, but our new stuff not so much. And so even just looking at, if right now I said it was going to cost this much to have it uploaded and designed and all that to put things on Pinterest, would I pay for that now? And to just start looking at how do we edit things and improve things and look at systems and operations. That's been a big focus for us. And for you, that may look totally different. But I love that idea that Kristina shared with us of thinking quarter by quarter, what's the big thing to focus on, and edit out the other stuff. Because it's so easy when you have a private practice, whether it's a solo or a group, to just continue to do things how you've done it and to have just all these different things you have to keep track of without asking yourself, why am I the one doing this? Maybe I need to outsource it. Maybe I need to have somebody else help out in a different way. So if you're looking for some help, we have all sorts of services over at Practice of the Practice, especially tech and IT support. So if you just go to practiceofthepractice.com, you'll see services, a drop down there for whatever you're looking for. We do most of the back end support for running a practice. We don't do billing, we don't do phones, but a lot of the IT side, a lot of the social media marketing, putting together plans with you. Feel free to go over there and check that out. Also, we could not do this show without our amazing sponsors. And today we have our sponsor, Alma. Building a private practice, it can be so challenging. There can be so many things to keep track of around building your caseload, attracting clients that are the right fit. For a lot of my consulting clients, it's navigating insurances. In fact, I just recently was talking to someone who their insurance billing company still hadn't collected on 2022 completely, which, it's just crazy. There's so much going on there. And that's why Alma gives clinicians the tools they need to build a thriving practice. When you join their insurance program, you'll get credentialed within 45 days and get access to enhanced reimbursement rates. You can learn more about building a thriving practice over at helloalma.com/Joe. Again, that's helloalma.com/Joe to get started. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.